In today's episode, I'm going to explain why every success story you see online feels like bullshit, and what that tells you about finding financial success in the current economic climate. This episode is sponsored by Copy AI, a toolkit that helps writers, marketers, and freelancers skip writer's block completely and quickly create first draft copy for themselves and their clients. If you'd like to get a 30-day free trial, head on over to copy.ai/Jacob. So what I want you to do is take a look at this image that I have on the screen here. And what this is comparing is the progression of a typical career, an employed career where you're working for a business. And then on the other hand, we have the progression of a more entrepreneurial career, someone who is building a business or perhaps building multiple businesses. So what you see here is we sort of have this straight line, and then we have this sort of exponential wiggly curve. And what we're seeing here in this chart is essentially two completely different career experiences. And if you are not actively participating in the entrepreneurial career experience, it's going to be very difficult to relate to what it's like. You're going to struggle to empathize with and understand the ups and downs, but at the same time, the upsides are going to feel very unrealistic because they are so far beyond the scale and scope of what you are used to in your own career progression. And this difference in experience is what makes it feel like bullshit whenever you see someone talking about this pretty extreme success story. And first of all, what we have to understand here is usually the types of people who you're seeing success stories from are entrepreneurs. They are people who have gone out and built some sort of business that's worked out quite well. Occasionally you will see success stories from people who are just making a lot of money at their job. Maybe they have a career in tech or engineering or something where they're making several $100,000 a year. But this is a much lower percentage of the stories that you're seeing because those people's success never relies on you knowing about their career or their business. For an entrepreneur, the more people know about what you're doing, the more people who are going to buy from you, the bigger your business is going to grow. So entrepreneurs are very motivated to put their story out there, to get that success story or that narrative in front of anyone who's potentially within the target market. Publicity and people knowing about what you're doing translates into more sales. For a tech engineer who's making $350,000, that's not the case. They're going to make that money regardless of who knows about it. In some cases, they might even feel a little bit embarrassed to talk about it. There's definitely social norms that push against advertising how much money you're making, and if you don't have the incentive of making more money pushing you through that norm to talk about it, you often won't. There's also the reality that the more people you advertise your income to, the more people are potentially going to ask you for money or try to get money from you in some way. So all that kind of leads to people who have succeeded in the employee journey not talking about it a whole lot, while people who are succeeding or trying to succeed or pretending to have succeeded are sort of flaunting the success stories on the entrepreneurial end. Now, getting back to the original point here, that feeling that when you see these success stories, it feels like bullshit. There absolutely are a lot of bullshit stories out there. But the key here is that even the bullshit stories are modeled after real stories. So fundamentally, the experience of people going out and having success as an entrepreneur, as someone building their own business, even the bullshit stories are modeled after people who are actually doing it. So the overall narrative that you're seeing and feeling like, oh, this is bullshit, whether or not the specific story that you're looking at any given moment is true or not, the reason you're feeling it's bullshit isn't because it actually is or is actually unrealistic or impossible for you if you were to try to make it happen. It's because the journey and the scenario is just a fundamentally different scenario than what most people are used to in more of a linear career progression. When you start working, you start at sort of a competitive entry-level base, and then just sort of gradually stair-step up your income over the next 30 to 40 years. You can make little jumps as you transition company to company. Really, at this point, the best way to grow a employee career is to, every 2 to 3 years, transition to a competitor or another company that's going to pay you more and promote you to the next level. It's very hard to just stick with the same company for 40 years and increase your pay as much as you could by, moving around from business to business. But even when you are making, a nice little pay jump by moving businesses, we're still talking about pretty small percentages in terms of, if you're making a 10 to 20% salary jump by moving to that next company, that's usually pretty good. Occasionally, you might have a bigger one if you, change locations to a more expensive area, or just get really fortunate and, find a really ideal position that pays you 50%, maybe even 100% more. But that's pretty rare. And if you do that, it's probably going to be one of those jumps. It's not going to be every 3 years that you make this transition. So you're looking at this very linear journey of gradually getting better and gradually making more money. As an entrepreneur, it's a very different process. It's a very different experience. You can spend years laboring to build something and have it go nowhere, and all of a sudden it blows up and you have 1,000% increase in your income. Or even on something a little bit more straightforward like freelancing, I've had multiple times where within about 30 to 60 days, I completely doubled my income just by finding a better way to approach my lead generation. This is the type of thing that makes it all feel unreal, is that, if you're making the same amount every month and you know that, hey, if I want to get a 25% increase in my income, then what I need to do is prepare to go through a whole bunch of applications and land a slightly better job in a different company. And there might be some extra complications that come with that, like having to have all new bosses and all new coworkers, maybe even move cities. It's a pretty big deal, to get that next 25% bump. It's a huge deal. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you could potentially be increasing your income 25% every month. You could have a 3-month period where your income increases 100%. It's just a very different world, and the rules are completely different. The risks are definitely higher, but the rewards are completely lopsided. We are in an economy that is fundamentally designed to reward entrepreneurship and to reward people who have capital or have a service or product that they can bring to the market within a business owner capacity. And once you enter that world, you'll see pretty quickly that the rules are just completely different. It's kind of the Wild West in many ways. A lot of the rules that people think govern how this world works really aren't there. It's a lot of people just trying a lot of things, seeing what works, seeing what sticks, experimenting, making insane amounts of money, losing insane amounts of money. It's a whole different world. So if you're someone who, you've sort of been intrigued by some of the stories you've seen, you know people who have these careers where they are working for themselves or building their own businesses, and it just seems like they live in kind of a different reality. That if that's something you've been wanting to explore, I would highly encourage you to do it. And if you head back to the previous week's episode, I have a whole episode on why I think freelancing is a great place to start. And everyone, especially if you have a writing skill or some other high demand skill on the market, it's a great on-ramp to the world of entrepreneurship and working for yourself. So I hope you found this video helpful. We took a little bit of a different direction, but I hope you found it interesting, and I will catch you guys in the next episode.